What's up, YouTube? Loudmouthbassin here. I'm over at old Rick Nose to Winter's house. Let me use his garage and his fishing pole to film a little quick episode today. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different than what you've seen us in our past do on the channel. Something new I wanted to try, a new series, I guess you could say, that we're going to start unveiling. I feel it answers most of the questions I've received. It's been one of two formats. One is how and where do I get involved in these tournaments, which the link in the last tournament video and the link in the next tournament video will have a link to the Facebook group that we sign up for the tournaments and the website that we use to run the tournaments. So that answers one of the two questions I get from a lot of subscribers and a lot of the comments. The second type of question I'm getting from a lot of the comments and subscribers is, how did I know this technique, or why did I use that technique, or how do you fish this technique? So what I'm doing now is I'm going to create a series of different techniques every single day. So I'll be filming maybe one technique a week, maybe 2 or 3 techniques, try and see how much filming I can get done here. I don't want to set any promises or precedents, but I'm going to do some filming about different techniques each day. Today's technique is something a little bit different, something I purposely came over to good old Rick's house because I know Rick is one of the best I've ever seen at it, and that's going to be the drop shot technique. So I really wanted to illustrate some things about the drop shot technique. First of all, what is a drop shot technique? It's a finesse technique. It was a technique established to get bass to bite when they really just weren't chasing baits. We all know how, or we all heard of spinner baits, crank baits, throwing reaction baits. We've talked about that in one of my other videos, is a reaction bait, getting that bait that flies by the fish and they react to it. Well, what if they don't bite the reaction bait? Then what do you do? Or what if the conditions, the weather conditions aren't right for a reaction bait? Then what do you do? A lot of people will go to a Texas rig or something. Rick, one of my good buddies, you guys have seen him in videos, you know he can catch fish. He will go to that drop shot almost religiously. And it's a good thing, it works for him. It's produced. Sorry, if you guys can really see it. I've got Rick in the background here flexing and showing off as I talk how good a fisherman he is. So, part of the best parts about fishing. So Rick lent me one of his poles here, and he's already got it tied up, so I wanted to show you. This is a drop shot rig. I hope you can see it against this white shirt. It's got a little hook. This is actually a Gamakatsu, I want to say it's called an octopus hook. So that's the type brand Rick really enjoys, the Gamakatsu octopus hook. I think it's a size 1. It's pretty small. It's not very huge considering most bass hooks. This worm here is just a Berkeley power bait worm, no big deal. Any worm will work as long as it's a small 4 to 6 inch worm. And then below the hook, hanging on the line, is a weight. He's got a special drop shot weight. These are actually poured by a good friend of mine from the Midweek Bass Club, Lou. But a lot of different weights will work. You can actually tie a bullet weight, you can crimp on one of the little crimp weights, you can tie egg sinkers that are made for this. A lot of different weights can be used. The idea is the setup. So you have a hook hanging anywhere from 6 to 18 inches, some up to 24 inches above the weight, which means that the weight hits the bottom and then the worm is floating in the water. The good part is I'm going to get some underwater footage to add to this and we'll talk about that, but the weight's going to be on the bottom and the worm's going to be dangling anywhere from 6 inches to 24 inches off the bottom. That works when the fish are staging. So again, we talked about this is the drop shot. When we ask the question, what is a drop shot? This is a drop shot rig right here, okay? Usually fished on very light line as it's a finesse rig. It's used to catch fish when they're not biting, okay? When do you fish a drop shot rig? Well, like I just said, conditions apply. Number one, when the bite is tough, when the reaction bite has died or gone away. Sometimes when it's hot out or when it's the middle of the day when the fish aren't actually chasing bait fish and it's a tough bite. A lot of people will switch over to a finesse rig, a drop shot rig. One of my biggest key factors is the weather, the circumstances. So if it's a windy day, I'm going to fish a little more reaction because the chop in the water is going to make it harder for the fish to see. If it's a real calm day, the water is flat. It's a nice warm day, it's sunny, then I'm going to look at that finesse rig, that drop shot, that slow approach. Because then the fish are going to have time to come up and really investigate the bait. They're not going to bite that hard plastic crankbait when they have something just sitting there easily edible like a worm in front of them. That's when I like to throw a drop shot, when it's calm, when there's no chop in the water's almost glass or flat. The clearer the water, the more likely I'll be throwing a drop shot. And the clearer the water, the more natural worms I'll be using. The darker the water, the more darker or vibrant worms I'll be using. Where do you throw a drop shot? You can throw a drop shot anywhere. You can throw a drop shot from 1 foot of water to 40 feet of water I have caught fish in. again, the drop shot ideally targets the fish that are what they call staging fish. They're not quite moving up shallow to spawn, they're not quite hanging deep, they're just hanging off the bottom about 1 foot to 2 feet. The reason that works is because that's where the worm is. It puts it right in front of their face. So that's where I like to throw my drop shots. You could throw them anywhere. Doesn't really matter. One thing I would recommend is you probably don't want to throw it too much around real thick, heavy cover. Simply because when you look at the rig here again, it's a little different. You've got the hook and the weight. So you've got 2 snag points. You don't have just the hook to snag on, but you also have the line and the weight hanging below it that can snag on a tree or a bush or anything in the brush. So I would really recommend throwing it in a little less cover than most. It's not something you really want to throw in the weeds. You're not really going to do so successful with. That being said, I didn't mean you can't do it. It's just you're going to have a lot more time pulling out of cover, breaking off, and retying than you will catching fish. How do you throw a drop shot? This is where I wanted to bring in my good buddy Rick, but he unfortunately has been a little working hard today, doing some grinding and welding and fun stuff like that, so he wasn't ready for his camera motion, so we'll talk about how you work it. And what I'll do is I'll actually examine or use his rod as an example here. So he'll actually throw the line out there, and what I'm going to focus on here, and we'll have some underwater footage showing you the worm in reaction, but what I'm going to focus on here is the actual action that he's doing with his rod. And what I've always watched Rick, and notice I've always watched him like a hawk when he fishes, he'll throw it out there and he'll let it sit. He'll just barely just shake his hand, just like that. I don't know if the camera's catching it, but he's barely just shaking. And that shaking is making my rod tip move about 2 to 3 inches at a time. And then he'll stop after 4 or 5 seconds. Let it sit. He'll shake it again for a few seconds. He'll stop. He'll reel up some slack. He'll shake it again. And what that's doing is it's causing this worm right here to just shake and flutter in the water a little bit. Just flutter around. And then it'll sink back down towards the bottom. And he'll pick it up and work it, and then it'll sink back down. That's how, one of the best ways to work a drop shot. There are other methods. I've seen people that'll throw it out and they'll jerk the rod up a good foot, foot and a half, make that worm shoot up and then fall down gently. Now, a lot of the bites you're going to receive on a drop shot are going to be on that fall. That worm's falling in front of their bass's face, they're going to attack it. Sometimes the most bites I get are on the call the dead stick or the do nothing approach. I'll throw that worm out there and just let it sit, right? Sometimes that creates a big frenzy for these fish. One of the last things I want to talk about with this is the variations in your rig. So the drop shot, again, we talked about has the hook and the weight behind it. So we got the hook, we got the weight hanging. How long should my leader be is one of the variations. Well, it depends on what you're doing. You can use this as a bed fishing technique. In that case, you want a short leader because you want the lure or the worm to be closer to the bottom right in their bed. Okay? If you're in deeper water, maybe a little bit longer of a leader. If you're in shallower water, maybe a little shallow water. The conditions are going to decide what variations you're going to change. Now, a simple variation that a lot of people don't know about that I actually use is instead of a curly tail worm, sometimes I'll throw on a straight worm, a finesse worm, and instead of hooking it at the nose here like Rick has, I'll simply hook it right here like a wacky worm. And I've done it even with a ringtail worm. Just hook it like that. That is going to slow the fall of the worm down in the water and make it vibrate even more. Drives those fish crazy. So when I'm not getting the bite sometimes with a regular drop shot, I'll switch over to a wacky rig drop shot and throw that. Again, little variations. What's the most important thing when you're talking about these variations? Conditions. Let the fish, let the water tell you what to use. Best way to learn that is not necessarily by watching my videos or anyone else's videos. It's time on the water. Get out there and try. Get out there and practice. Get out there and fish. If the fish are biting one way, remember it. Write it down. Keep it in a journal. It's something I do is I try to remember everything that I do with fishing. Some of it I write down. Some of it I keep on a photo log. The idea behind it is it's April 3rd and it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's 80 degrees. There's no wind. I caught fish that day using this bait and this presentation. Chances are, if I come across those conditions again, I might be able to replay that effect and get it to work again. So if I'm in a big tournament someday and it's 86 degrees out and there's 0 wind and it's this humidity, I can try that method that I used to catch 6 or 7 bass that day, and it may work on a different lake in a different location. It's the same conditions that are going to make the difference. I hope you guys are following me on that. With that being said, I think we've covered the what, I think we've covered the where, I think we've covered the when, I think we've covered the how, and we kind of hinted at the why we want to throw the drop shot. Why is because it's hard to get those bites. Oh, phone call, must be important. We'll get back to you. All right, YouTube, Loudmouthbassin out here with Rick.
All right, YouTube, Loudmouthbassin out here with Jason.
So, one thing we did want to talk about before we get into the actual water presentation, which I'm going to hand over to Rick here, is some of the most important things about drop shot that kind of get excused. Number one is going to be the knot that the line is tied with. Rick's going to get right into that right here.
The knot that you use on the drop shot is a Palomar knot. And the most critical thing about when you tie your hook on with a Palomar knot is that the hook actually looks like that, where it's facing upward and not upside down, where it would be like this, okay, or like this. You could present that presentation every time if you just, when you put your hook on. Myself, I like to put it on where it's already facing up, and then when you tie your knot, sometimes it's actually facing down. But if you grab your knot and you twist it like so, and you pull on the knot, you'll find out that it'll end up like that pretty much every time. And that is a really critical thing, that hook is facing up like that, because that's going to get them in the roof of the mouth every time. And then another thing is, when you're working drop shot, that the weight is in contact with the bottom. And there's one rule on fishing that I know of, and there is such a thing as moving your bait too fast, but there is no such thing as moving your bait too slow. So if you keep that weight just sitting on the bottom, and you could just jiggle this without moving the weight, that is the greatest presentation for drop shot. Okay? But those are just two things we wanted to mention, that way you understand. This is called a Palomar knot. I guess we'll show you later how you tie it.
We will have a knot video one day.
And then that the hook actually looks like that. That is very critical. That is facing straight up. Because when you set that hook, it gets them right in the roof of the mouth. If the hook is turned upside down, you're going to go to set the hook when you get a bite, and the worm's just going to come right out of its mouth, and you're not going to get nothing. So there you have it.
Motion here is the most important thing. Like I was saying, it's just a little twitch. You can see his rod tips just barely moving. And when you see that underwater footage, you'll see that worm is just moving just enough to get some attention. Like Rick said earlier, there is such a thing as moving your bait too much or too fast, but there's never been a case of moving your bait too slow. So keep an eye on that technique right here.
Definitely makes it a lot more interesting when there's bass in the water, but we're just go ahead and illustrating it in a pool.
We're just using a pool today, but yeah. Next time we'll maybe try and get some underwater footage in the lake over here. It's nice and clear, but I got to get a deep pole to put the fish on, or the camera on, so we'll see. In the meantime, Loudmouthbassin, Rick the winner here. We're out of here. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, smash that like button. And leave a comment, and this time in your comment, let us know what technique we can show you or help you improve on better. So in that comment section again, let us know what technique you want to see next. Loudmouthbassin out.